Mark never thought discipline was his strong suit. As the founder of a scrappy startup, his days were chaotic, his calendar overrun, and his nights restless. While he admired the carefully orchestrated lives of successful entrepreneurs, his own felt like a game of Jenga, with a tower threatening to topple at any moment. But one sleepless night, scrolling through stories of business icons, he stumbled upon a quote: "Success is nothing more than a few simple disciplines practiced every day." The words stuck with him. The next morning, Mark made a decision, small but deliberate. He was going to test the power of discipline in his life, one step at a time. The chain reaction starts small. Mark's first experiment was deceptively simple. Wake up at 5:30 a.m. every day and dedicate 30 minutes to planning his priorities. At first, he hated it. The mornings felt cold and cruel, and his bed never seemed so inviting. But by the end of that week, something strange happened. The 30-minute ritual gave him clarity. Tasks that once felt overwhelming were now laid out like pieces on a chessboard. He moved with purpose. The first domino had fallen. Next, Mark decided to tackle his health, a pain point for years. Rather than commit to a full-blown workout routine, he'd failed at that before. He started with 5 push-ups and a short stretch. Day after day, the habit grew until it was automatic. His newfound energy helped him focus during investor meetings, and his confidence swelled. His colleagues noticed, too. "What's gotten into you?" his co-founder Sarah asked, raising an eyebrow. Discipline meets delegation. As Mark became more disciplined, he realized something. He wasn't just improving himself, he was setting an example for his team. He challenged them to embrace structure in their own roles. They started holding regular stand-ups, ending the endless cycle of miscommunication. The company's productivity soared. But Mark also knew discipline wasn't about doing everything alone. It was about creating systems that made success inevitable. So he leaned on delegation. He hired a virtual assistant to handle his calendar and implemented automation tools for repetitive tasks. It freed him to focus on big-picture strategy, and for the first time in months, he felt like he could breathe. The mission that fueled everything. One Friday afternoon, after a particularly grueling week, Mark found himself doubting the path he'd chosen. "Why am I putting myself through all this?" he muttered. It was then he remembered a lesson he'd learned from a podcast about mission-driven businesses. Companies that thrive have leaders who tie their actions to a greater purpose. For Mark, that mission was clear: to build a business that not only thrived financially, but inspired others to take risks and chase their dreams. Every early morning, every strategic decision, and every small sacrifice was for that mission. It became his North Star, helping him push through the difficult days. Gratitude as an entrepreneur's secret weapon. Mark also began practicing a habit he'd heard about from a mentor. "Gratitude is like jet fuel for your brain," the mentor had said. Every time Mark opened his laptop, he paused to jot down 3 things he was thankful for. Sarah's sharp insights. My kids' laughter. The customers who believe in us. This simple act reframed his challenges. When an investor declined to fund his company, he no longer spiraled into despair. Instead, he saw it as a chance to refine his pitch and double down on those who already believed in his vision. The power of 2 minutes. Mark's old habits didn't vanish overnight. The temptation to procrastinate still lingered, especially when a task seemed daunting. But he discovered a trick: the 2-minute rule. When he felt the urge to delay, he'd give himself permission to wait, but only for 2 minutes. During that time, he'd observe his thoughts. "Why am I avoiding this?" he'd ask himself. Most of the time, the urge to procrastinate passed, and he found himself diving into the work instead. This rule also helped him make progress on long-term goals. Rather than set an overwhelming target like writing an entire business plan, he'd commit to just 2 minutes of work. Often, those 2 minutes turned into 20. Momentum, he realized, was everything. Designing an environment for growth. Mark had one final insight: discipline thrives in the right environment. He looked at his workspace and realized it was sabotaging him. Piles of papers screamed for attention, and his phone buzzed with endless notifications. He overhauled it. His desk became a sanctuary, free from clutter. He kept his phone in another room while working and set specific times for email. He even extended this thinking to his diet. Instead of trying to resist temptation, he stocked his office with healthy snacks and replaced coffee with green tea. Discipline wasn't about willpower anymore. It was about preparation. The ripple effect. 6 months into his journey, Mark sat in the back of a conference room, listening to a keynote speaker. As the audience applauded, he reflected on how far he'd come. His company was growing steadily, his relationships with his team and family had never been better, and his own health and mindset were thriving. The transformation didn't come from grand gestures or overnight success. It came from small, deliberate choices compounded over time. Mark smiled, thinking of a lesson he'd heard. Discipline is the bridge between goals and achievement. As the next speaker took the stage, Mark scribbled down a single note in his journal. Discipline isn't a punishment, it's the ultimate entrepreneurial advantage.